Welcome to Climate Quest. Our mission is to inspire the next generations of climate founders by showcasing the real world journeys of young entrepreneurs and investors in the climate space. We are on a journey to demystify climate tech and tackle the blockers young entrepreneurs are facing in building or starting new companies. Today, we are thrilled to speak with Tony Oehm, CEO and co-founder of ZeroEx, a company developing enhanced rock weathering projects in Germany and around the world. Although Tony is in his 20s, he already holds a patent for a technology that makes it possible to produce activated carbon from biological waste materials, a topic he started researching while still in high school. Before co-founding ZeroX, Tony already served as CEO of a blockchain startup, so tons of entrepreneurship experience. ZeroX specializes in developing enhanced rock weathering projects in Germany and around the world, focusing on innovative, scalable MRV methods that improve measurement accuracy and reduce cost. ZeroX exclusively uses byproducts from existing mining operations and collaborates with farmers in direct vicinity. Working within the strict regulatory environment in Germany and around the world, partnering farmers receive a safe and effective natural fertilizer to support their transition towards sustainable agriculture practices. Tony, welcome to Climate Quest.
Happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Tony, great to have you. Why don't we start out with you introducing yourself and telling us what inspired you to found ZeroX? We've already understood that you're doing something with byproducts of mining operations and transformed into basically a natural fertilizer, but maybe you can shed some more light on how this actually works.
Absolutely. So I think my very first touch point with climate tech was actually a book from Al Gore that I read probably 15 years ago, which got me excited about the sector as a whole. As you already mentioned in the introduction, I've been working in several startups, initially focusing on supply chain management. And from supply chain management, I quickly transitioned to how can we measure and quantify emissions of products along the supply chain. And at some point, it occurred to us that probably just measuring what's going wrong is not enough. We should actually focus on removing the carbon that we are creating. With ZeroX, it's actually a funny backstory. So we've been kind of researching carbon removal for already years, even before we incorporated the company, and we're still working on supply chain emission calculation. But we were particularly very excited about enhanced weathering because we thought it's kind of a too good to be true technology. You take rocks that are already there, transport them with infrastructure that is already there, and spread it on fields that are already there with machinery that the farmer already owns. Actually, at some point, one of my working students approached me in 2022 and told me, hey, Tony, this enhanced weathering that you're so exciting about, already doing this at home. And it turned out that his parents own a small farm, and they've been already spreading rock powder as a natural soil amendment for a decade. So we had a farm, we had some rock. There was no reason not to start with it. And it has been an exciting journey ever since.
Amazing. That's a crazy story. And I'm sure that getting people to understand what enhanced rock weathering is and that it works is probably hard, even though it seems so easy and it's working. What have been some challenges in ramping this up and getting this really out there?
Yes, I think the beauty and the challenge of enhanced weathering is that we are actually working with nature. It's a natural process, and when we spread rocks on the field, after they've been spread, you don't really see what was happening there. The way we always like to frame it is that is a process that's already capable of removing billions of tons of carbon every year in nature. Essentially, the reasons why mountains become a little smaller by a few millimeters every year, because rocks react with acid. And the only thing that we are doing is speeding up that process so it is kind of feasible within time frames that are relevant to climate mitigation. I think the big challenge is in communicating enhanced weathering is that people normally like to see machines. Like with direct air capture, it's always great to see something that does something else. In the case of enhanced rock weathering, it's kind of, again, the beauty in the challenge by itself that we are kind of just using what's already there.
You were already in other startups before, but would you say that the climate tech journey has been different than if you would have just co-founded another startup, like a, let's say, non-climate tech startup?
Absolutely. I think the key change to other startups is that, especially in enhanced weathering, we are working with several industries that previously didn't have any connection with each other. Means we are working with small family owned farms, we are working with big industrial agriculture, we are working with quarries, we are working with big mining conglomerates. And on the other hand, there is a lot of collaboration with academia. And obviously, you also need to find a way to sell the carbon removal credits that you're creating, which means talking to chief sustainability officers of big tech companies, insurers, etc. So what excites me the most about enhanced weathering is that we have kind of this big group of previously unrelated industries that we try to connect with carbon removal.
Building on that, we were wondering before the recording how this actually impacts the agri-food system and how the farmers are actually responding to this.
Absolutely. I think it's important to understand that using rocks in agriculture is not necessarily a new thing. Humans have been using regions that are dominated by volcanic soils for already thousands of years because of the fertility. And again, kind of the reason why we started the company is because one of our, or at least the family of one of our employees, has been already using agriculture in a regular farming setting. And if we look especially at Europe, usage of rock powder in agriculture has been a large topic, especially in the 1930s before industrial fertilizers hit the market. So most farmers already know it, but discontinued it because you just need a lot, and needing a lot of material per hectare means that costs are increasing. But as soon as we bring in the carbon removal aspect and are able to subsidize this process, we haven't found a single farmer that dislikes the process. And in that instance, for the farmers, the benefit is pretty clear. We are able to fully substitute agricultural liming by supplying the rock powder. And in the second step, we are also supplying additional nutrients that are not contained in regular lime. So the way we usually approach farmers is pretty simple. If we get in touch, we just show them a piece of paper with the analysis results and the confirmation of the safety and also regulatory safety behind it, and we let them choose whether they want it or not.
Tony, tell us a little bit about balancing profitability with climate impact in your business model. It sounds like it's very critical, especially picking back off what you just mentioned. Is there anything else that you see, especially in contrast with the other startups you've been working on?
Yes, I think particularly in carbon removal, the question profitability versus or with climate impact is quite easy to answer, because in the end the key metric for our business is remove more carbon, and removing more carbon in the second step also means that in the end we'll be able to generate more revenue and grow the company in the future. So I think what kind of keeps the team motivated here is that the climate impact is really directly aligned also with the economic goals behind the company. Looking at profitability, I think the key in enhanced weathering is measurement, because since we are working with existing infrastructure, it's quite easy to scale, but there are a lot of challenges in actually proving how much carbon has been removed. And this challenge amounts to currently 60% of the costs of 1 ton of carbon removed via ERW. Means the way we look at this is that measuring beyond what certifiers require from you as a developer should be seen as an investment and not as an unnecessary expense. So what we try to do is essentially to focus on the scientific research behind ERW, optimize the measurement strategies, especially in the first deployments that might hinder profitability, to essentially generate the data and confidence behind the process that will then allow cheaper costs for the industry itself, and also a healthy profitability that helps us, to be literal, survive over the next years in the very, very long run. So I think long-term thinking is kind of key working in climate tech.
Absolutely. We were just chatting earlier. You guys already are deployed in, was it 2000 projects?
Yeah, 2000 sensors of our proprietary technology that we are now deploying together with 4 partners in Brazil, 3 different projects, academia and commercial in the United States, and are now also aiming to kind of deploy this all over the European Union, also aside from our own projects. What is also exciting, what I can maybe mention at that point, is that I think that collaboration in this space is incredibly important, because in the end, every project is very specific and has its own kind of KPIs. Means if I'm working in a Brazilian very sandy soil in a climate with a lot of rainfall, even if I would have the very exact same feedstock, the ERW efficiency would look completely different. So in the end, I think it's about generating data sets all around the globe that help us then identify the most promising spots to do ERW and to optimize the process even in the regions that might not be fully suitable for it. And we are currently launching a project where we partner with over 8 companies all over Europe, where we launch identical pilot projects that will then allow us to directly compare the data and generate learnings, and maybe also help us to develop models to estimate the carbon removed for a specific project.
This is so interesting. So, even though enhanced rock weathering has been around for a very long time, it sounds like the data sets and benchmarking are still something that is an evolving territory.
Exactly. There are great initiatives already, such as Cascade Climate, that have launched the so-called Cascade Data Quarry in the last years, where every project developer can contribute their data sets in an anonymized fashion. So researchers can access these data sets and work on either modeling behind it or optimization, or kind of approach specific developers and asked for research collaborations. So I think that is incredibly important, because again, deploying rock is quite simple, but figuring out where to deploy rock and how to do it is kind of the secret sauce.
Absolutely. Shifting gears to the entrepreneurship part of this, and I think you have a very rich experience to share with our listeners who oftentimes are quite early in their careers, thinking about launching their first startup or joining us. If you were to do this all over again, what would you do differently, and any pieces of advice you could share with our listeners?
That's a good question. So, to put it plainly, sometimes it always comes down to the money. I think honestly, what I would have done differently is raise more capital really early on. Because what you're faced with in kind of any carbon removal pathway is a lot of research, a lot of pivots, many changes in the process of how you're conducting your project. So, kind of building up that buffer that allows you to conduct that additional research that maybe not a primary business objective is really, really valuable. So what we kind of try to embrace at ZeroEx is essentially every research idea goes on a big list and it has to be executed at some point. And research is incredibly expensive, but this will then allow us to become profitable in the long run. The advice that I would give other younger founders probably comes down to find a great team, because in the end what you're faced with is, let's put it like that, sometimes 2 or 3 years of development without seeing any commercial success, because you're still kind of in your garage, or in our case on the field, trying to figure out the specific mechanics behind the process. And without a great team, this can be quite painful. In our case, keeps me motivated is essentially coming into the office every day, and seeing a bunch of idealistic scientists being incredibly excited about launching a new project in Brazil or in India, and about what we can learn in these projects as well.
Is there any specific resource or a set of tools or networks that you feel helped you along the journey?
Hard to bring it down to a specific set of tools. I think what helped us in the very beginning is, so when we started with ERW, and we were a team that now has a lot of geoscientists, back in the days this was not the case. So our focus was just reaching out to every single scientist that we could find on any paper related to enhanced weathering, and just kick off the conversation and ask the very same question all over again. Explain to us how our ERW works and where you see the limitations. And after doing this probably more than in 80 different calls with different people, you kind of gain the understanding, and also then know who is able to help you, especially in a very research driven field.
Great. This brings us to the last question, which is what's next for you in ZeroEx? Is there anything you're excited about? And yeah, what can you share about the next steps for you?
Yes, I'll take a little detour here, because my thesis behind technologies like enhanced weathering is that it doesn't make sense as a startup to always fully capture the whole value chain. It might seem intriguing in the very beginning, but I think generally in climate technologies, many aspects or technologies are already out there in different industrial contexts, and we can just kind of take them and integrate them and use them to scale. In our case, this means that our focus right now is shifting from essentially being a full project developer, where we do everything from sourcing the quarries, calling the truck drivers at 6 a.m. in the morning, making sure that they arrive at the right field, onboarding the farmers, to essentially focusing primarily on the scientific side and the measurement and verification behind it, and partnering with operational players that already have the infrastructure and the teams in place to scale projects like this. So last week, we announced a partnership with Anglo American, which is one of the 10 biggest mining companies on the planet. And to be fair, Anglo American has probably a supply chain department and a department that knows very well about rocks that is many magnitudes larger than our entire company. So I think if we want to get carbon removal off the ground, it's imperative that we find these partners that will allow us to scale and enable them with our technology.
Great. So some very exciting things happening. Tony, thank you so much for sharing your insights with you. This was super interesting. And I hope that some listeners now understood what ERW is and that it's very promising. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And if not, always feel free to reach out to us. Our scientists are always happy for additional ERW science chats. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Great.
That's amazing. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
being here.